Welcome to Nerd Stalker, episode 16. We're here at Project One in San Francisco with a really great announcement here. I'm not going to steal the thunder. My friend, who are you?
My name is David Cohn, and I'm the director and founder of Spot Us, which is at the URL spot.us. Spot Us is a nonprofit project trying to pioneer what I call community-funded reporting. So the idea is if you get 30 people who are willing to put down $25 or $30 each, that's enough to hire an investigative journalist to look into a topic that they're all interested in. So for example, we raised $2,500 from 74 different people to fact check the political ads for the SF election that we just had. And now that we did that with just a wiki, actually. Wow. And now we have a full dynamic site where journalists can upload pitches that they want to do, stories that they want to investigate, and go to the community to commission that work.
So what are you announcing today then?
Well, today I'm announcing the web application. During that time when we had the wiki, it was actually informing the design and the development period that we were going through behind the scenes. Okay. So the website Spot Us now is built with Ruby on Rails, and it's a sort of a dynamic web application where we have 3 different types of users. The first type of user is a citizen, and citizens can donate towards pitches, and they can also create what we call story tips. Mm-hmm. So you as a citizen can go in and say, I want someone to investigate the environmental degradation at the river by my neighborhood. Right. And you can get people to join that tip, pledge it. It's basically like a group, right? You sort of say, yeah, I'd give $10 towards that. Mm-hmm. The second type of user is a reporter. They can create pitches which are similar to tips, but a little bit more detailed, right? It's description of what they're going to report on, what they're going to deliver, a video of them explaining who they are and how they're going to report on this. And then you can donate real money through using your credit card to that pitch. And then third type of user is actually a news organization, because the finished content will actually give away to local news organizations. Okay. So if we fully fund a pitch about the river by your neighborhood that's maybe got some environmental degradation, if we fully fund that, we'll actually give the content to a local news organization. We'll give it to the Oakland Tribune and say, hey, why don't you run this? We'll even tie a little bow around it.
Wow.
Because the public funded it, so it's sort of public content. We're basically going to use a Creative Commons with attribution license. The only exception to that is if a news organization a news organization can get exclusive rights to the content if they refund the original donors. So nice. You get your $20 back to invest in another story, cool. And the Oakland Tribune gets the exclusive rights to that story.
And are you guys a nonprofit or?
We are. We are actually the project of a nonprofit. Okay. Our fiscal sponsor is what it's called. It's called the Center for Media Change, and they have a site called Real Changes, REEL changes.org, which is very similar. They fund independent documentaries, right. And so they have the 501c3 status, right. And we are a project of the Center for Media Change. So all donations are tax deductible to Spot Us.
How'd you guys come about this whole idea?
Oh man, so I used to be, so my background is a journalist. Okay. I was a journalist, but I was a tech journalist. So I used to work for Wired and Seed Magazine. And I was also the research assistant for a guy named Jeff Howe, who coined the phrase crowdsourcing. And in journalism, whenever you coin a phrase, it's like real estate. Yeah. You get a book deal. And so he had a book deal. In fact, his book came out maybe about 2 months ago called Crowdsourcing, the hidden power of crowds for businesses. And there was one chapter on it called crowdfunding. And I was doing the research for crowdfunding, and I learned about sites called like Kiva.org and Donors Choose, right. Which are amazing and successful. But I think journalism is a good thing too. Right. It plays a role in our local democracies. And right now, because of economic forces, I think everybody knows, newspapers are essentially falling to the wayside. But I personally want to see the role that they played continue. And so I would argue that donating towards journalism is a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing for our local communities and our democracy. And so while I was doing the research on Kiva and Donors Choose, I wanted to try and figure out, scratch my head, how could micro donations work for journalism? Right. And that's Spot Us is my attempt to figure that out. Wow. Traditionally, 0.001% of the population determines the news agenda. Right? And we call them editors. And they have a freelance budget, so they determine what stories do and don't get told. And Spot Us is my attempt to try and democratize that action, right? More of the population can determine what stories do and don't get told, because now the public has a freelance budget. And you know, I think it's important for journalism to get back to serving the public, right? If you have 50 people who are willing to put down $15 each, then as journalists, we should react to that and say, look, this is important to people. We should be covering this.
What's the roadmap now? I know you guys are just being, like, the birth is happening now, so.
Right, well, we're just starting out right now, and we're actually only launching in the Bay Area. So this is for the San Francisco Bay Area for a lot of different reasons. But, you know, what I hope happens and what I intend on doing is launching it in other cities.
So if I'm, you know, giving money to this, how do I know that my story there's any progress being made and that someone's not just on a futon somewhere, just like drinking beer?
Sure, that's a fantastic question. Well, the first response is actually they don't get paid until they turn in the final story. Oh, wow. So if they don't turn in the final story, then the money goes back to you, and no harm, no foul. But so we're not launching with this feature, but this is something that I want to create, hopefully very soon. Essentially, because the reporter's already been paid, or is collecting money and trying to create, you know, some energy around what they're doing. Every pitch will also essentially have a blog. So because the idea of the scoop doesn't make sense with Spot Us, right? You don't need to hoard your information. You've been commissioned by the public. Let the public know what you're doing. Report in public. You know, I can imagine a reporter who has been funded by the community saying, you know, here's my blog post today. I went out and I interviewed, you know, again, if it's that story about environmental degradation, I interviewed the river keeper, or I interviewed the local power plant which is polluting, you know, the river, and just do the reporting in public. So every pitch could, in theory, become its own sort of living, breathing reporting blog that you, as someone who helped fund it, would have direct access to and watch and ask questions of the reporter and say, hey, you know, I also want you to interview this person, and go on and on from there.
Can you take me step by step how me as a journalist, how do I even begin from beginning to end on this process? Sure.
It's actually pretty simple. You know, you register on the site, and when you register, you can register as one of three types of users. Again, a citizen, a reporter, or a news organization. Citizens and reporters are automatic. Their accounts are created. News organizations are the only ones who are allowed to donate more than 20% towards a pitch. So I'll go back to this. We limit how much a person can donate towards a pitch. One person can't donate more than 20% towards an investigation. That way you need a group of people. This is to prevent, you know, company A from hiring a journalist to do a story about company B, something like that. It has to be, think of it like Dig, right? You need a certain number of digs to get on the front page. Spot Us, you need a certain number of donors before it'll tip. So going back, so news organizations are the only account that are not automatic. We do a sort of like a, you know, phone call and check with them to make sure that they have certain sort of journalistic standards. But, you know, if you're a reporter, you sign up, you click that you're joining as a reporter. From there, you fill out your profile. It's pretty simple. You just go to a little tab that says My Spot, fill out your profile. You can load up your work history, kind of like a resume, work samples, you know, show what you've done in the past. From there, you click a little button that says Start a Story. Fill in all the fields, headline, short description, explain why your journalism is important, give your qualifications, explain what you're going to deliver, how much you're asking for. You can upload a video if you want. You have to upload an image, you know, something that shows up on our browse page so that it looks nice, and you're up and running.
Do you see any other competition or co-opetition or anything like that?
Definitely co-opetition. I mean, because this idea of community-funded reporting is new, I encourage everyone, all journalists, to try it. In fact, the code for Spot Us is completely open source. So right now, people are asking me, when's it going to come to this city? When's it going to come to that city? I say, you know, my honest response right now is I have to figure it out here in the Bay Area, but the code for Spot Us is open source. It's on GitHub. Contact me if you want to do your local version of it. I would love that.
Again, how do we find you guys, and how do we contact you?
Sure. Well, the URL is www.spot.us, and you can contact me, David, at spot.us, and I try to make myself as open and available as possible.
Believe me, he does. And he's really passionate about this. I see his tweets. I see him all over the place talking about spot.us, and it's awesome. So thanks so much for your passion and for the announcement. It's great. Thank you.